been thinking about the desire to remain small, even when it contradicts our dreams, our aspirations for ourselves. A better life, more independence, better relationships. And the tug, the resistance to being in any way that might disrupt the peace, that might attract conflict or contempt. Or rejection. And I've just been thinking about how counterproductive it becomes, this survival strategy, which it very much is. At some point, the box becomes too small for you, and your soul wants to grow. Your soul has outgrown it, wants to find new forms and avenues of expression, of relationship, of abundance, and this vow to remain small and unseen and silent, it directly limits that. It is directly opposed to your own innate desire to grow and fill in your potential, embody your potential. And for me, the past couple of weeks have been an extensive looking inward, searching, trying to understand why I don't have the will to pursue the things that seem so obviously mapped out to provide the abundance, the freedom, the leisure, the passion that I seek in my life. I have very clear things, pots, cooking, in terms of my skills, in terms of my experiences, that if I were to just act on them, I would have access to that quality of life that I've been praying for, dreaming about. But I've had to get real honest with myself and realize that I've been in this cycle for many years now. Maybe not that many because I'm not that old, but a solid 5 years where I feel unready, unequipped, right? I feel a sense of insecurity about just pursuing my own independence in life. And then I end up settling for a career choice that really does not nourish me creatively or financially. or just personally, and then being bored with that or being frustrated with that, and leaving, only to find myself at the next place. And in between all of this, I keep on swearing to myself, that's the last time, that's the last time, that's the last time. I'm finally gonna break out and do my own thing. But this time, I think it hit me the hardest. I think it was meant to hit me the hardest because the cycle had to come to an end sometime, somehow. And the reason it hit the hardest this time was it just became, the longer you're in a cycle, the more extreme it becomes, the more painful it becomes, the more obvious it becomes until you see it, until you acknowledge it. Only then does it change. Only when you are willing to confront something that hasn't been working can something be done, truly be done. And what happened this time around was just the the time spent at a new place of employment was kind of like record breaking because I spent like 1 month and I was like, nah, 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 nah. This is not the work I signed up to do. I don't feel a cultural affinity to this place. It just wasn't home for me, and I struggled to get to a place after all of these years, right, of disappointment and frustration. I struggled to get to a place within me where I could just sit with it and tolerate it. And I knew almost instantly, starting out at that job, that this was not the place. Yet at the same time, all my friends around me are breaking out in their own independent careers. I have one friend who started an art gallery and her space is blowing up. Events all the time and networking and traveling, and she was on the news like some other week. I have another friend who started her own design company and they're also doing absolutely great. I have another friend who's been going on writing courses and residencies, just traveling the world, publishing, getting her books published. And it's so interesting because these are all avenues where I have interest, right? And to just see people doing it and how easily and how quickly those things manifested like right in front of my eyes, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, of course, I was happy for them, and I've been nothing but supportive to them or with them or whatever. But it really just made me reflect on my own situation, like even more. It made the situation that I was in at that job place even more like irritating, for lack of a better word. Because even from my support, my friends, I was getting that nudge of like, dude, what are you doing in a job like this? My coach was like, what are you doing in a job like this? You can be living it up. And I was like, yeah, I can. I should be. And everyone is motivating me to just up and leave. And I wanted to, of course. I'm not saying it was no one's fault that I did. But then I did it. And for about a month, I kind of trudged around, felt around, the scene of independence, trying to get together portfolio, sending that out to a few places, working on my online website, my own portfolio. Website, I think, is more apt a term because this would include my artworks and my writings and even merch, if I were to get there. But very quickly into this endeavor, I felt the steam kind of leaving me. It wasn't really working out, and it definitely wasn't gonna happen as quickly as I thought it was. I don't even think I thought about it really. I was just so passionate about getting out of that workplace and getting free. I didn't really think about the scaffolding, and how long the structure takes to build. The structure of independence. But at the same time, I got hit with that same reflex of freezing and collapsing when faced with the call to truly emerge and to truly hold my vibration, to hold my dream and to pursue it and to pour myself into it. I froze and I collapsed and I didn't, end up doing it. I felt again that I wasn't ready, that, you know, I was out of my depths. And so then I ended up packing up everything and coming back home again, which I had also sworn to myself that I would never do again, because home has always been a little bit of a cage, where I've always felt stifled, like a princess in a tower or something. It feels so small and helpless. But it's always been where I've come back when, the workplace hasn't worked out and I can't afford anything. And yeah, at some point, reality had to be faced, and I ended up back here again. And everyone was genuinely surprised. They were like, "What happened?" And I was like, "I don't know. I didn't. I don't know, you know." And that's what I really wanted to get to the core of, because I was like, this cannot keep on happening. I cannot keep on going in this cycle. I need to figure out and reframe or reconcile whatever's happening internally, the blockage, the lack of support. That's whatever's happening. So I've been really digging deep into my own psyche, into my past, into my soul, trying to understand what's going on, what is needed. Because here's something else that I said to someone. I said that, and it was very true. They were just trying to push me along, push me to just keep on going with this dream of mine. And I said I could do that, but I've seen time and time and again how when I just try to push through it, I end up sabotaging it anyway. And it's not like I haven't had the things in my hands before, that they've been out of reach. I've accessed them. I've gotten there, but I've never felt peace. I've never felt a sense of arrival. I've never felt a sense of competence, and I could sustain this. And I've always ended up just relinquishing it. And so I knew that I had to go back to the foundations, in order for this thing to hold. If one part of me did not feel ready, felt resistant, I had to sit with that so that all of me can come along on this next chapter. I cannot leave or suppress any part of me to try and just make this thing work. And so that was the challenge. That was the mission. To figure out which part of me was still scared, was not ready, or needed some support or whatever. And the realizations have come in layers. And I could do a whole kind of video about breaking that down. But the utility of that is can be argued because I think every person's journey is different, just as the experience has been different. But I'll share the fundamental discovery that I made. There was always this sense when pondering the unknown, when pondering that threshold, there was always a sense that some part of me was not in integrity, that some part of me could not sustain this, was not strong enough to hold up. And I couldn't figure it out. Only to realize that what this part is was a false self, that is spoken about in, I think it's Buddhism, that talks about it. But the false self, this personality, this collection of beliefs, behaviors that were formed in survival, in adaptation. And the longer you have that mask on, the more it starts to feel like it's the true you, It starts to take up space. It starts to be the main voice. And I've been parsing this voice out. I've been just kind of separating myself, distancing myself from it, just to look at it. Not to banish it just yet. Not that I plan to banish it, because in parts work you realize that each and every part of you, there are no bad parts. Even if that part is seemingly destructive, it's like sabotaging your growth or your health, it's performing a function to try and protect you in some way. And it's doing something that probably worked at some point. And it's also meeting some sort of need that you don't have any other way of meeting. And this part of mine that I've labeled or named the cloak is a part that was born out of a very difficult time in my childhood, where I was completely alone with very overwhelming things, and I had no other place to put those things but within. No one wanted to hear it. No one would understand. Couldn't talk to teachers about it. I couldn't talk to friends about it. Couldn't talk to family about it because they were the cause. And I had to maintain a facade for everyone's sake that everything was okay. I had to play the part. And that came with so many broken beliefs and vows that I made to keep that structure in place. And I folded around my heart, and that tender part that was overwhelmed and hurting and alone. I folded this cloak around it that would also, like simultaneously while protecting it, will also dim its light, dim the noise. And that became a way of life, and it worked. It worked for a long time. It kept me off the radar. It kept me in people's good books. I was the good boy, the good sport. But eventually, as I stepped into adulthood, it became a problem because it no longer fit. It wasn't supporting a life of independence, of agency, but one of submission, hypervigilance, anxiety. And I couldn't hold anything in my hands without freaking out. Because to be seen, to be exposed in any way was dangerous. It was deadly. And so I'd always find a way to drop it, to drop whatever success I had, whatever accomplishment, whatever opportunity. I'd find a way to let it drop to my feet, to keep the heat off me. And so, as you can see, this part was just trying to protect me the best way it knew how. But it was a problem because it was directly stifling the moves I was trying to make to break free, right? To start my own life. And so something had to happen. And it just began with bringing compassion and grace to that place. Truly realizing, truly registering, I guess, the depths of the overwhelm and isolation that I was feeling at that time. Truly understanding why at that time it was necessary and vital to adopt this part, this way of living, but also to realize, to admit, to confess that it was not my truth. Because falsehood cannot hold in the light. Falsehood always collapses in the light. And so much of my personality, the ways I've adapted, that I was so near to just forming around and becoming and uniting with, I guess, or fusing with so many of those things I'm starting to see, wait. Don't go all the way into there. Don't disappear into that identity, because as much as the adaptations I brought on, being being very composed, being very intellectual, being very philosophical, yeah, there's some other things, but those characteristics, as much as they've brought some very interesting qualities into my life, they've allowed me to have a very rich inner world. They've also been the cause behind my isolation and me feeling alienated from the people around me, because like all of a sudden I feel like they won't understand or they won't relate. And this was also brought to a height at that place that I lived for 2 years in complete isolation, to the point where there were days where it would hit me that I could die here and no one would actually know for a while if I'd kicked the bucket, because I was that disconnected from all my relationships. And that was a problem. Like, how did I get to that point? But it was all in service of trying to protect and preserve this identity that I was clinging so much to, for safety, for meaning. And it was taking me down. It was like this tragic love affair, because all it wanted to do was protect me, but the effects of that were making me completely anonymous and invisible, causing me to completely disappear from my own life. So what I came to was a very hard realization that this thing I've been investing in, that I've been defending, that I've been presenting this whole time, is not the truth, is not the right way, per se. And that the one I left in the dark, the one I've been burying and hiding, is the one I need to actually reclaim in order to be able to stand solid and firm and rooted in who I am. Because that banished one, that exiled one, has a quality that I haven't felt for a long time. I realized that because I was tracing back the years and I was like, when did I lose that quality? I wasn't always isolated. I wasn't always disconnected. I wasn't always so cautious of the world and so fragile. I used to be able to rock up at friends' houses, and we'd go to other people's houses, and it would just be an adventure. It would be a chill adventure. And I could just meet people, new people, and get to know them and have fun with them. But over the years, that ability faded. It atrophied. And I was like, where was it that it that I let that go? Where was it that I lost that? And I realized it was those like a period of years around when I was 9 and 12, where I was just so overwhelmed, and I'd just been so blindsided, by these devastating developments in my life that I had no control over, no support with, that I kind of just put myself underground to protect myself, to protect what is left of my innocence, my heart. And it's like if you're looking at your lifeline as a timeline, it's like there was me from 0 years up until to like 8, 9, and then there's just this gigantic black crater in the span of 9, 10, 11, 12, where it was just devastation. And after that, I put on the cloak, and I've been coping since and calling it being fine, calling it healing, calling it maturity, calling it whatever labels I found to justify it. But ultimately, whatever I had adopted as a response to the traumas, whatever I had adjusted in myself, that thing could not hold in the light. It had so many defenses. It had so many triggers that I realized I could not be the same person who could just have those adventures I used to have as a kid, who could have the same conversations or the same interactions, because there was too much to be defended. And it's a huge limitation. It's a huge limitation. Because the only place that this identity has felt safe is in complete isolation, or just with, people that I'm completely used to. But even then, there's a layer of hiding, of pleasing, of adapting, right? But I'm not being completely authentic. So to look at this genuinely, with complete humility, that what I thought was the right thing, what I thought was, for a long time, genuinely, completely thought that this was the way to go, this was the way to survive, this was the way to live, that it was not the way. It was still very much rooted in woundedness, in defensiveness, and it had not been opened by the revelation of love and of God and of my own soul. And ultimately, it was shrinking me, right? It was denying my life. And I think this is poignant, maybe for different reasons, but I see so many people that also struggle with the failure to launch into their voice, into their dreams, whatever. much, they have all this promise and all of the soul, but there's this reluctance to actually take the leap, and they never do, and it's never spoken about. Because no one wants to acknowledge that. It's big to acknowledge. It's a big thing to acknowledge. One of your biggest hurts in life, and I think a lot of us, if not all of us, have had that big black crater somewhere along our lifeline. And we've contorted around it, we've folded ourselves around it to protect ourselves. But that protection has become a prison. That won't let us be who we are, who we can be. And we find all sorts of untrue reasons, right? Reasons that lack compassion. Reasons like, I'm just not smart enough, I'm just not good enough, I'm just not capable, which aren't true. And for me, the cycle just had to come to an end. Somehow, I just had to come to the end of my own effort, the end of my own avoidance, the end of my own justifying and defending. And realize that something very tender was confronted with a burden it was not prepared for. With no support, with no escape. And that was a life or death situation. And in that moment, the adaptation might have saved my life. But it was not the cure. It was not the way to live. That yes, we can still honor that part for the ways that it protected and served. But we must also come to the second realization. Eventually, when it's outgrown its use, when it's limiting us, or even harming us, that's something else beneath, that very thing that we've been burying or denying, hiding, hating, in order to try and keep it down and protect it. That tender core is the only way out, is the only way through. And to realize that no protector part that you can assign out of your own resources, out of your own might, can ever truly protect you from life, from pain, from vulnerability. None of it can. So the cloak part of me had to acknowledge that it cannot protect my tender heart. It can't. Not where I'm going, not with what my destiny is, not with what I'm here to do or want to do. And at this point, you rediscover the God that you had abandoned in your hour of need, because you thought that God abandoned you in your hour of need. But you realize that God, this all-encompassing force behind all of creation, this field of love, it is the only thing powerful enough to offer your soul the protection and nourishment and direction that it needs to be free and to be whole and to grow. God is the only one that can offer you that assurance. But it takes surrender, doesn't it? It takes a huge act of surrender to let go of that habit of clinging, of protecting, of preserving, of surviving, whatever way you learn to survive. It is a huge trust fall, essentially. It is the biggest trust fall of your life, is giving your life to God. The tenderest, most vulnerable, most innocent, purest part of you, to give it over to the care of God. To say, whatever happens, I'm walking out that door, and I'm going to trust that I'm watched over, that I'm surrounded by grace. And I don't know, maybe other people find other things to sustain them, to give them the sense of assurance they need. But for me, I've run the entire mile in religion, in science, in cults of culture, whatever form they take. I've gone searching everywhere for a place of rest, and none of it has felt right. None of it has felt genuine. I narrowly escaped the predatory claws of institutionalized religion, because it is absolutely predatory. Do not get it mistaken. They prey on the vulnerability of people who need meaning, who need assurance. And in that moment of need, they tell you to give your power away, to give yourself away to something you don't exactly even know what it is. You must give your beliefs away, give your questioning away, give your agency away. But that love is still conditional, you see. And I'm saying that only God at the source, only that love is unconditional. Because only that love can truly embrace all of who you are. If God created you, then God understands. God knows you completely, knows what you need. And so that's been a huge part of my ritual of surrender, has been getting closer to God. Surrendering that control, confessing that I did not know. I thought I knew. I thought I could see, but I was blind. I was blinded by my fear. I was blinded by my pain. And I think it first starts with acknowledging that super, super vulnerable, tender place, and realizing that we do all sorts of things to try and keep that place cushioned behind some sort of fortress, behind all sorts of distractions and suppressions. We do whatever we can to try and protect it from the perceived and felt hostility and harshness of this world, until you realize your efforts will never truly lead you to victory. Something Michael Singer said really stuck with me. He said that people build entire temples around their pain, and they call it success. So let's say you have you have a cut on your finger, and you don't want anything to touch that cut, to disturb that cut, because you want it to heal, right? You don't want it to hurt. And so you find all sorts of ways to get around things having to touch that cut. First you learn to use your other hand, then you learn to you modify your kitchen, and then you modify your home, and then you modify your entire life and how you move around and who you interact with, just so that that cut does not get touched. And you say, okay, there we go. This is peace. But you see how you built a whole life around that pain, and it's completely crowded you out of your own freedom. And that is no success. That's no victory. That only comes in finding a way to integrate the pain. Not to contort yourself around it, but to find a way to feel it if you must, and to heal it, and ultimately move through it. But that's so that you can return to wholeness. What I'm saying is that personality, that adaptation, the cloak was my contortion around the pain. It was a way I was trying to protect and maneuver around the pain. And it became all encompassing. It became all consuming and extremely restrictive. And even more painful, I guess. ironically. In different ways, but painful all the same. And it's like the prodigal son, right? Who leaves his father's house, determined that he's going to make it out on his own. He doesn't need his father's things, only to get completely buffeted by the harsh reality of the outside world, and to return home humble and say, please take me back. And the father, with open arms, takes him back like nothing ever happened, throws a feast. I think we all go through that journey with God in varying degrees, in varying ways. Things hurt us, things disappoint us, and we lose faith in God. And we try to go at it at our own, on our own. And we try to just survive. And then that just gets so exhausting at a point. And it can take many lifetimes to arrive at this point of exhaustion. In a way, I'm grateful that my realization came relatively early in my life, right? I'm only 26. I could have gotten to this at a midlife crisis or in my 70s, realizing that I'm tired of this lie I've been living. I'm tired of surviving. I just want to live. I just want to thrive. I just want to breathe. I just want to exhale all of it. It can take many lifetimes, but eventually I think we all get to a point where we get to the end of our efforts, our wits. We have no good ideas. We have no escapes. We have no excuses anymore. And it's just, I give up. I surrender. I do not know. Please help me. And that's when grace rushes in. That's when the real work begins. Of healing, of learning to just let your shoulders down and be taken care of. And this doesn't mean that you don't ever do anything in your life. It just means that you move different. You move with a different knowing that the course of life isn't entirely hinging on on your tiny human hands and what they can do, on your tiny human mind and what it can conceive, on your efforts. The course of your life is under the care and direction of something greater and wiser, and there's a comfort in that. And I'm letting that unfold every day. I'm learning to surrender in all my ways, to confess, to come humble, to come clean. All right. Because all of this, I believe, is just our steps to rejoining, to a reunion with God, where you're breaking down all of those walls and conditions of separation until no barrier remains between you and God, until no doubt remains. What can be sees all that's always been. The more you go deeper into this, the more you realize, oh, this grace, this unconditional love, this expansive space, this freedom has always been all around me. This peace has always been all around me. I've just been too preoccupied. I've just been too closed in. I've just been too defended. The more you surrender to it, is the more of it you see, the more of it you experience, the more you remember. And so I say all of this, and I don't have a quick fix. These are recent revelations that I've come to that I'm very grateful for. My conversations with God are so fruitful. But it's step by step. I'm not given the whole map of the town. I'm given the next step and the next step and the next step. And that's part of faith. And in some grand way, I know that also this crisis has been trying to catalyze a change, right? A realization in me. And I could be frustrated that it took me so long. It took me 5 years, but like I said, it could have taken way longer. And it's like, no matter how long it takes you to come clean, no matter how long it takes you to finally surrender, it does not matter. It's all forgiven. Someone said something so profound the other day that no matter what you've done, God has already forgiven you because God knows the nature of this place, the nature of this reality, that we're all tricked, that we all do act in desperation and confusion. And so it's okay. It's to be expected, but that's how you learn. It doesn't matter when you get it. It just matters that you do. And when you do, the real work begins. No matter when that is. I think of another story. I don't remember the exact details of it, but this pastor, I think, was recounting a story from his childhood where he was chopping wood or something with his granddad or his father. The details are very blurry, as you can tell. But essentially, he had been given some kind of chore that was just too great for him. He couldn't complete it. And he had tried everything to get this thing done. The whole day they were sweating in the sun, and eventually he comes to his dad and he's like, I've tried everything, I don't know how to do this. And his dad looks at the thing. I forget what the actual object of the story was, like if it was some kind of thing he was building or chopping or whatever. But his dad looks at the thing and he's like, well, you tried everything except for one thing. You didn't ask for help. And I've always been so wowed by that story. It's always stuck with me because I feel like that is the nature of how, same as a prodigal son, right? The nature of our return from ego into humility and surrender, and how we realize grace is always available when we think and remember to ask for it. So yeah, I'm navigating all of this, feeling it out, But one thing I can say is that it already there's less of a sense of dread or resistance to pondering those next steps. Because in a way, they are inevitable. I know within my own soul's journey in this lifetime, I'm going to be doing certain things, and all of this has just been a setup, really. But I know there's certain things that I have and will do within my soul contract. It's just a matter of when, not if. But I feel like I've made some real breakthrough in that blockage that I was suffering, that thing I could not see through, or I could not see past. And I've said oftentimes that healing is more about really releasing every single thing that you have accumulated that is not you and that is not yours. Other people's ideas, other people's expectations, other people's conditioning, other people's actions toward you. Healing is about getting all of that out of your body, out of your system, so that only the truth remains. And I want to get to a place where I have no secrets, where I'm not hiding anything. People who have a good sense of other people can usually tell just from meeting me that this guy's holding something back, this guy's got something under the hood. And I've always watched it with like a bit of amusement. Their suspicion of me, because what I'm hiding under the hood is really it's nothing deep, it's not some grand villainous plan. It's not anything dangerous. It's really, I'm just hiding my tenderness, and I'm hiding that part that I don't want to get hurt. That's all. But people would think, you're trying to scam them, or you're trying to get some kind of rise out of them. No. The nature of what I've been hiding has been very innocent. But either way, I want to get to a place where I'm not hiding that anymore, where I'm just walking free with it, knowing that it is under the care of God, not my own efforts. Because that's what my efforts are generating, is the secrecy and the suppression and the silence. But I think it looks different under God's care. It looks like a free flow. It looks like living like uncompartmentalized, living free. Because that's something greater than you has you in its embrace. And that's really comforting. So, thus is the journey. Thus is the journey. No time wasted, I don't see any of this as time wasted. I see all of this as jewels along the path, as absolutely grace, as growth. And I look forward. I look ahead. So yeah, that whole, just to bring it full circle, the the insistence on remaining small, that's also melting away, right? Naturally, it'll begin to melt away as all of those false personas and defenses, as they are disproven, as they are honored but retired, you know, or honorably retired into surrender, right? And as you reawaken to the grace that's always there, to God that's always there, and heal that relationship and learn to trust in God again, I think you enable a trickle and then a flow of your original self to start shining through again, unobstructed, unconditionally. That becomes the situation. And the need to remain small all of a sudden melts into expansiveness, into presence, into expressiveness, into just shining your light without fear of what could go wrong or what stands to be lost. You just do it because you know it's okay to. So it's a profound healing, but it's also a profound grace that you gain for the journey. Because you're not doing it with your fists clenched and, your teeth clenched and your ass cheeks clenched. Like you're strolling, knowing that it's okay to just be you, and that the rest kind of just comes. The rest kind of just happens. You don't have to survive your life. You get to just live it. You get to do and be who you want to be. So that's really great, personally speaking. Personal opinion. So yeah, I think I'll leave that there for today.